Readers, it's Mrs. Aurelia, and today we are going to read a book from Sora that is about the experience of going to a museum, and then we are going to have the experience of going on a virtual tour of the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. So from our own houses, we are going to think about what the experience of going to a museum is like, and then we're going to have the opportunity to actually go to a museum and have a tour of what is going on in the Smithsonian right now. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And I am going to start reading you this book, which I accessed through Sora. So you can also go and read this book if you like it and you want to read it again. Maybe you want to read it to a younger sibling and tell them about this. You can go ahead and find it on Sora. So this book is called A Funny Thing Happened at the Museum, and it is written by David Calley and illustrated by Benjamin Chaud. And this book is through the publisher called Chronicle, and this video is recorded with permission from Chronicle. So we are going to go ahead and get started reading this book. Okay. This is called, again, A Funny Thing Happened at the Museum. Before we start reading this book, I want you to take just a second and think about what do you think the experience is like going to a museum? What kind of things do you expect to do in a museum? What kind of things do you expect to see in a museum? So I want you to just take a second and just think about that. All right, so now that you have that idea of what you expect going to a museum to be like, I'm going to go ahead and read you about Henry's experience of going to a museum. And I want you to think about, as we read, whether or not this is how you expect your experience in a museum to go. So this is Henry's teacher, and she is saying, "So, what did you think of our museum field trip, Henry?" "Well, it wasn't exactly what I expected. As soon as I walked in, I was charged by a triceratops. Fortunately, I sought safety among a family of Neanderthals." So Neanderthals are early humans that haven't evolved all the way yet. They look like this. "To thank them for their help, I entertained them with my balloon folding skills. But then I was chased away by a herd of buffalo. Suddenly, there was a loud boom. So I ran out of there as fast as I could, but I accidentally broke something along the way." So I'll tell you right now, this is not how I expect the experience of going to a museum to be. I expect, if I'm looking at something like precious, like dinosaur bones, I expect to see them and be like behind a rope where I can see them, but I can't touch them or anything. And now here's David, and he is on top of the dinosaur bones, rearranging them. I tried my best to put it back together. Then I was briefly detained by a lively sculpture. Thankfully, I was rescued by another one. After all that action, I decided to catch my breath. Then I got lost in an unusual stairwell that led to a secret passage. I do picture there being secret passages in museums. It was a real mess down there, so I just had to put things in order. I really cleaned all over. So he's cleaning on top of the whale. Oops. 1 second. There we go. And I took care of a few other things, too. I happened to notice that some paintings weren't finished. So he's adding his drawing on top of these paintings that are already there. I really applied myself. By then, it was getting late, and I needed to find our class. I had no problem spotting them, but joining them wasn't as easy. Luckily, I discovered a way to reach them really quickly. But I probably misunderstood the instructions, and I landed in totally unexplored territory. Suddenly, I felt far away from everyone. But that didn't last long. And that is what happened at the museum. Well, Henry, it sounds like you had fun after all. Maybe one day you too will be an artist. Who? Me? Oh no, I don't really think so. Meanwhile, people are gathering from all over to look at the rearranging that Henry did in the museum. So maybe he is an artist after all. All right, so that is the end of this book. So I want you to take a second and think, is that how you expect your experience inside of a museum to go? I know that's not how I expect my experience inside of a museum to be. But it's a fun story, and I think that for me, I think maybe it's more about the experience of what it feels like to be in a museum than about what it's like to actually go to a museum. So in all of these different images, Henry is being transported to different places and feeling different things, feeling like he's really far away from what he expects. And that's the feeling that I get when I go to a museum. It transports you to other places and other times and makes you think about lots of different things in different ways. So today, I also want you to take some time after you're done with our read aloud to go to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History and do a virtual tour. I have the link also posted here, but I'm going to show you a little bit about what you can do and what this looks like on my screen here. So right here, you can see I am on the Smithsonian website. And this is where you can access the tours. So you can look at exhibits that are there all the time. You can look at exhibits that are just at the Smithsonian right now, exhibits that have been there before, and there's some other options as well. So we're going to go ahead and look at the permanent exhibits that they have available. So see, as soon as you go in, it puts you almost like Google Earth, like you are right inside the museum. There is a map here that shows you the different places that you can go, and you can click on these dots and go there. So I am going to go ahead and go. I really like ocean stuff. I think that ocean stuff is really cool. So I am going to go ahead and we are going to go to this exhibit right here about the coral reef. So once you click on it, you can actually look back and forth, up and down. Sorry if you hear that sound in the background. That is my parakeet, Albus, up there. And he is looking at the museum with us, also getting a museum tour. So you can look at the different parts of the museum using these controls down here. You can look left and right, and you can look up and down. And with the plus, you can also zoom in. So if you want to read something, that helps. So this tells us about how coral reefs are complex and fragile ecosystems, and we can actually read about that by zooming in and see what that's telling us. And we can zoom in and see the fish that are in the coral reef. And then by pushing here, it allows us to travel around the museum and look around. And once you feel like you've looked, it shows you on the map. It gives you check marks for the places that you've already looked, so you can know what you've already explored and what you haven't yet. So you can go around and do it that way, or you can jump around like this and go to different places this way also. So that is a little bit about how to use the National Smithsonian website and how to look at the exhibits. And again, those are the exhibits that are there all the time, but you can also click on one of these other options and you can look at the current exhibits that they have as well. So that looks like right now they have an exhibit about African bush elephants and rotunda. So you can go ahead and look at that also. So there is lots to look at on here, and I just want you to take some time to explore and to decide what you think it's like, what the experience of going to a museum is like for you. And the cool thing is that we are doing this from home and exploring from home, so we can be like Henry and we can be as creative as we want as we go on these museum tours, and you can kind of reimagine the museum and get into the minds of the different things that you are seeing in the museum. So that is what I have for you today for your library specials time. I want you to know that I'm really missing all of you and really thinking about you every day and thinking about how I wish we were at school reading together, but I'm really excited to have this opportunity to be able to still teach you and still connect with you. So I hope that you are doing great, and I hope that this online school, you're getting the hang of it. I hope to see you soon. And also, we're going to have some beautiful weather today. So I hope you take some time to go outside and maybe think about, if you were to create a museum that shows what your life is like, what things would you put in your museum? All right, guys. Until next time, have a good day. Thank you. Bye.